Holy crap, do I have a movie for you guys. This movie blew my mind. Unbelievable. I loved it so much for so many reasons. Today, we are going to be talking about The Devil All the Time. This movie came out in 2020, actually just a week ago. And I gotta tell you, this, so good. It was directed by Antonio Campos, and it was written by Antonio and Paulo Campos. And it was based on a novel, which I found out recently. And it was actually a narrated movie by the person who wrote the book, which I'll get into the narration soon because it's a pretty important part of the film, in my opinion. But first, I want to talk about what is arguably the best part of the film, and that is the cast. Oh my god, this cast. I wish every movie could have this cast. It was literally like a dream come true when they announced this cast. I was so excited. And I'm really excited to discuss the cast with you because some of it took me by surprise and I was like, "Whoa. I didn't know they could do that." And boy, can they do that. So the main character in the film is played by Tom Holland. People are going to get very mad at me for saying this. I'm sorry. Tom Holland gave the worst performance in the film, which, do not get me wrong, was not at all a bad performance by any stretch of the imagination. He did a fantastic job, but everybody else did so much better. I mean, like, it's all top tier, but everybody else outshined him, and maybe that's just because he was a little distracting for me. They all had to have southern accents, and for me, his was the least believable. And then there were times when he would have to scream or, like, talk high pitched, and the only thing they would recognize in my brain was, oh, that's Spider-Man's voice, because when he's talking in the high pitch that he normally does, he loses the accent a little bit, and so it really like kicks my brain into like, oh, a little distracted by that. But for the most of the film, he had like this low, gravelly voice that kind of surprised me. I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? That was really cool. But there were times where he lost that, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm wondering if maybe they shot that first before he could really fully develop his accent, which is fine. It wasn't distracting to the point of like, I hate this movie. No, it was okay. And his performance was still, again, phenomenal. But I'm very excited to talk about the rest of this. But before I get there, I do want to say that there are females in this cast. I'm just not going to talk about them as much because they're hardly in the movie. If you want to find out why they're hardly in the movie, go watch it yourself. Or don't. If you're like under the age of like 17. Because it's graphic as hell. Next on our list, we have Bill Skarsgård, whom I have only seen as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, which he did a phenomenal job with, of course. I mean, anybody who saw that movie was like, wow, that's really scary. And he was scary in this film, too, which I think was cool because his character isn't innately scary, per se. More so than it's like, wow, this guy's capable of some really crazy crap. But his performance was unbelievable. His character arc is the first that we see in the film, and it blew me away. I mean, it really drags you into the film. It's like, whoa, this guy is a really cool character. I can't wait to see him develop. And then you don't get to see him develop, and it's very depressing. If you want to find out why you don't get to see him develop, go watch the movie yourself. Jason Clarke, whom I have seen in many movies. I mean, he's in like every horror film ever. He does a lot of films. And he was great in this movie. He's usually not a bad guy in the films that I watch with him in it, but arguably he's one of the many, I guess, antagonists. I think everybody in this film could be a protagonist or an antagonist, except for this person. The person that Jason Clarke plays is just the worst, most awful human being I have ever seen on film, ever. it literally made me want to throw up when I was watching it. I mean, it was awful. I hope it doesn't taint my other films with him in it, because I don't know if I can watch a movie with him in it and not think about the awful things that this character does in this film. But it's bad, and he did a wonderful job portraying these things. I have to keep in mind that, these are actors, which is why I think that it was so phenomenal that watching Jason Clarke could make me physically feel like garbage as a human being. And that's really cool, because I've never felt that way about Jason Clarke ever. So watching him be able to transform on screen into something that I don't think he gets to play very often was, I think, very fun for him. I think you can visibly see him having fun. Not, okay, don't take that the wrong way, because obviously what he was doing was not fun. But as an actor, getting to play different things is really, really fun. And you can see that he was having fun with the role, being able to play something that he normally wouldn't play. And it was scarring. It was really, really messed up. Like, wow, really messed up. And that brings us to Sebastian Stan, whom I had only ever seen as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, in the MCU. And I wasn't impressed with him at first. In the beginning of the film, I'm like, whatever. It's not that great. Then by the end of the film, I'm like, oh, wait. This character has a lot more depth to it than I had originally thought, which makes portraying it way more difficult. And it was really cool because he had this really weird haircut where he had shaved sides almost. It looked very different than what he does in the MCU films, which I think really helped, because most people who have seen Sebastian Stan are like, oh my gosh, he's the Winter Soldier, blah, 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 blah. I don't really like the Winter Soldier. I like the movie The Winter Soldier. I don't like the character very much. But he was so good in this film. So good. I really enjoyed watching on screen. I think maybe his performance was a little bit worse than Tom Holland's. I think Tom Holland might have been a little better. But again, all these are A tier, just the best actors in the game, in my opinion, at this point in time. I mean, it was just, what an ensemble cast. Which brings us to Robert Pattinson. Yeah, we'll just sprinkle some Pattinson in the film. Why not? It was so good. I love him. I think he does really great work. Those of you who don't like him have probably only seen Twilight and maybe Harry Potter. Which, whatever. Robert Pattinson is a god in his own way. I'm very excited to see his Batman film coming up soon. Assuming he gets rid of his coronavirus he has right now. He was so good in the film. He plays this preacher, and he's got this really low southern drawl that I think was blew my mind. I was like, whoa, I didn't know he could do that. So good. But he's a bad preacher, like most preachers that are perceived in films nowadays. Which, whatever, fine. Really, really enjoyed how he had played his character, because at first you're like, wow, this guy's kind of nice, and you're like, whoa, why would he do that? That's so mean, that's so wrong. And then he does something very twisted, and you're like, wow, he kind of deserves to die. It's really, really bad. So good. And I want to talk about one quick actor that also kind of blew me away. Not in the I'm a star way, but the way that I was oh, he's kind of a side character. He's not there very much, but he caught my attention for a couple reasons. For one, well, it's Harry Melling, which those of you who don't know, this is what he looked like 20 years ago. And this is what he looks like now. And it is very different. It is very different. I was watching him in the beginning of the film, and I was like, I know him from somewhere, but I can't place it. So I had to pause the movie and go look up who this was. If this was playing in the theater, it would have frustrated me for days until I could get out of that theater. You're not in a theater for days, but I over-exaggerate. I had to pause the film and look it up because it was bothering me so much. I was like, I need to know who this person is. And I found out who it was, and I was like, what the hell happened to him? And how can I make that happen to me? But, his performance was so good. So good. I had no idea he was in this film. I'm so happy he was. That was so good. You need to watch this film, if only for the cast. Which brings us to the plot. And there are like four kind of subplots in the film. There isn't like a huge overarching plot, I guess. I guess in the third act you see a few of them come together, which is interesting and kind of fun. Each plot is individually really, really good and also just awful at the same time. It makes you sick watching some of the stuff that happens in this film. If you are under the age of like 17, I would not recommend you see this film. It is disgustingly gross and just unrighteously wrong. I can't tell you not to go see the film, and if I were 16, I would go see the film. But I consider myself to be kind of a little bit more on the mature side, where I can understand that, oh, it's just a movie, it's not real life, which this kind of stuff does happen, so I guess I shouldn't say that, but I was aware of it at the time. I probably wouldn't let my kids see this movie until they were like 16, and even then it might be a little iffy depending on how they were doing. I'm not going to get too much into the plot because the film is so new. Normally I would discuss the plot of a film, but I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who might go see this film like right now because it's only been out for a week. I highly recommend you go see this film if you are okay with being queasy the whole time. It really was amazing. The runtime is 2 hours and 18 minutes long, which is a little long for a film that I like. Usually, I like my films to be about an hour and 40 minutes long. That's about my attention span for a movie, unless it's like Endgame, and even Endgame, that's a movie. That's a review for later down the road. But even Endgame had its points where I was like, can we please just get to the fight? But like this film blew me away with how much I was engaged the whole time. I have never seen a movie where I was like, I can't wait to see more of this. And when this movie ended, I was like, I need more of this. I could have watched that for days. And the reason I think that was because they weren't plot focused, they were character focused. And I really like it when movies are character focused because I think a lot of directors and a lot of writers focus on plot. But when you think about it, if you have good enough characters, you're going to have a plot regardless just because of a way that a character is going to interact with other characters. Like, Spider-Man doesn't have to have a plot as long as we know that Spider-Man is a good guy and the Vulture is a bad guy. You're going to have a movie there just because they're going to want to oppose each other. And in this film, there are like 4 overall arcs that get to play on their own little field and have fun with how awful the film is in terms of content. And I think it was really important for the writers to understand that it was really important to be character driven. And that is why I think they chose to narrate the film, which I'm normally not a huge narration fan. I think that voiceovers are dumb if you're going to voice over the entire film. Throw that out the window. This movie was fantastic. There wasn't an overwhelming amount of narration, but the narration that was there was like reading a book. Like when you're reading Harry Potter, for instance, you're like, okay, yeah, you're in his thoughts. This was amazing. Like something shocking would happen, and then the narrator would just float in and be like, and then he thought this. And I was like, thank you. That was really helpful. Like it's not narration just for narration's sake, which I think is really important because you don't want to have a narration just floating out there, willy-nilly for no reason. They knew where they wanted to put narration and why they were doing narration, and it was very, very well done. I think the beginning of the film could have used a little bit less narration, but I loved it. Don't even care. I fully support whatever this film did. It made me think about things that I don't normally think about. And I'll talk about that later on in other films where I was like, wow, this movie got me thinking. And I like it when movies get me thinking. This movie got me thinking about things I don't really want to think about, so I'm not going to think about it for very long. But some really crazy stuff happens in this film. I think that's all I wanted to discuss about this film, besides letting you know that you really should go watch this movie. It is on Netflix. For anybody who has a subscription to Netflix, please go watch this film. I don't want to give too much away, but I was on the edge of my seat for every scene. Every scene in this film was engaging, and I was so ready to watch this film. I am watching this again over the next couple weeks, probably a few times, which is ridiculous considering my movie watching schedule right now is little bit crazy. Thank you, comment section. Um, but for real, like after you're done watching this video, and all of my other videos, go watch all of them. You need to go watch this movie. It really, really was good. And even if you don't like the plot, which I don't think you're supposed to like the plot because of how awful the plot is, content-wise, watch it for the acting. It's just trust me, trust me. It's so good. And I understand that there are other reviews out there that didn't like this film. How, I don't know, but there are reviews out there where they're like, oh, the plot was kind of blah blah blah. They're wrong. I don't care. You're watching this channel because you like my opinion. My opinion is that this movie is deserving of my first ever A+. So make sure you go watch that film and comment down below what you want me to see next. And don't forget to subscribe. I've got a lot of videos coming out. I cannot guarantee this, but I'm hoping to upload at least one video a day, sometimes more, ooh, if you're lucky. I realize that film watching takes time, and also I have to film the videos, and then I have to upload the videos, which is fine, but I want you to know that if you subscribe, I'm going to give you a video every day. So make sure you subscribe. Also, starting on Fridays, we are going to be doing a live stream event on the Monsters and Munchkins channel, link in the description below. And we're going to be playing D&D live from 6 to 9 every Friday. I'm very excited to be there, and you guys should show up and support that channel as well. And we're going to have a great time, so I hope we get to see you guys there.